Hey, what's going on, you guys? I'm Lucas,
I'm Jaron.
and we are the Real Bros Reviews channel. And today we're talking about Amazon's new series, Invincible.
We swore we'd never do it again, but here we are.
Yep, we wanted to stay away from TV shows for a little while, but this was too good. So, how it kind of started, one day, I think I saw on Amazon Prime the banner for Invincible. And shortly after that, you had mentioned to me that Invincible was the best independent comic series you had ever read.
That's what I said. I
Yeah.
said what I said.
You
Yeah.
said that, and
And I,
I took it very seriously.
as well you should.
So, yeah, I carried that. I carried what you said. I took it with a lot of weight. So I told Micah, I told my wife that you had said that. So we're like, we should watch it. And needless to say, we were hooked after the first episode.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It
So
was.
I think we were talking about Falcon and Winter Soldier, and that's how Invincible came up. Because I was like, yeah, Falcon and Winter Soldier is bleh, whatever, it's fine. But you gotta watch Invincible. And then that's
Okay.
when I started trying to sell you on it. And I gotta admit, I was a little nervous because well, let me actually just back up and tell you what Invincible even is, if you don't even know what we're talking about. So, Invincible started as an independent comic, and if you don't know, independent comics just mean that it's not by Marvel or DC. It's just its own company, in this case, Image. And the characters are creator-owned, so that means the writers can basically do what they want, and there's no editorial or executive people telling them what to do. Much like what we see with DC movies right now, and we had the whole Snyder cut that we talked about. So there will be no Snyder cut of Invincible because it's already the guy. And in this case, is Robert Kirkman, whom you might recognize from Walking Dead. It's that guy. Basically, the plot is: imagine your dad is Superman, and you're a teenager, and your whole life you've been waiting to get your powers, and then they finally kick in, and then you're kind of introduced to the world of superheroing, and you meet the Justice League and all your dad's cool superhero friends, and you figure out where to get your first costume, and it's all fun. But then that's episode one. So I started reading Invincible like 10 or 11 years ago when I worked at the comic book store, and I flippin' loved it. And it got sold to me in a similar way. Like my buddy Chris, he said, Jared, you got to read this. This comic is like tailor made for you. I'm like, all right. So I picked it up, and I just didn't ever put it down until, if you've never read comics monthly before, imagine if you're watching, let's say, WandaVision, and there's a new episode out every week. And the terror and the pain you have to feel waiting a whole week to watch the next episode. I had to wait a whole month to see the next just chapter, not even a whole a whole book, just one little chapter of this once a month. And that's no way to read this book, let me tell you. So I decided I would pause on reading it until it was all over. So I finished it yesterday. And it was anyway. So that's the story of Invincible. And basically, we recommend the show, full stop, to like everybody, pretty much. Right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. We ask the question every video: who would enjoy this and why? So this is the kind of show that I love. I wait for shows and movies like this to come out. It's just one of those stories that keeps you watching, and not just in like a soap opera way, but like in a very substantive way. It's got characters that are interesting. It's got a plot that's deep and complex, and uses and utilizes every little thread in a meaningful way. And the show itself has been, I think, expertly directed and acted, especially for a cartoon. I think
Yeah.
cartoons have gotten a lot more respect in the last couple decades, but there's a bit of a stigma that cartoons are more for kids than they are for adults. This is definitely an adult cartoon.
Yeah.
So I would say it's for everybody, with one exception. I don't think this is for somebody who's queasy or doesn't like violence, because this is by far the most violent cartoon I've ever seen. One of the most violent media I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's just very graphic. And
Hmm.
if you've seen The Walking Dead, you should expect that from this. That kind of gore and violence. So
That's the only crowd I would say not to watch this show is, yeah, again, if you're really queasy. You might get by because this is what I explained to you at the beginning is if you really think about how superheroes would fight each other, like everybody knows that Superman could just rip Batman apart if they ever fought, but you never see that in comics. But this is the one comic that will do it, right? And if you watch that in the live action format, I think it'd be pretty like, oh my gosh. What?
yeah.
On that note, don't ever watch The Terrifier. If that's, don't do it. I did it so you don't have to. But I think what's cool and I think a little bit easier about the comic is because it's so cartoony, the art style, it looks, it has this fun look to it. So then when something really violent happens, I think it separates the violence just enough from reality that it wouldn't bother some people if that was a big deal for you. But it still might be too much. So we'll see.
It could
You
be.
can watch the first episode and let me know.
There you go. I'll say as a caveat to what I said before too, my wife is one of those people who doesn't do well with violence, especially like extreme violence. And we watched it and she actually didn't want to continue. She's like, I don't think I can keep watching this. But the show was so good that she's like, we have to keep watching it. That's very rare for Micah to do. If something is like she can't handle it, she can't handle it. But she was willing to push past that to keep going, and we finished the whole thing. So
Okay.
think.
We're going to keep pushing that button.
yep. This show reminds me actually a lot of Breaking Bad. In that I think there's a very strong moral thrust, but the characters are very complex. They make a lot of tough decisions, and there's a lot of gray area, which is really great if it's handled well. And in this show, it's handled really well. So all the characters in the show, I think, are interesting. They're multidimensional. They make choices that are sometimes confusing if they would be taken on their face. But because we know the characters and we can see the reasons why they're doing what they're doing in a lot of situations, it's believable.
So put another way, maybe the characters act not really like characters, but they make decisions that a believable person would make in their shoes with their disposition. And so they feel a lot more real and less like a stock, insert archetype character into here. Okay, so from this point forward, we're definitely going to be getting into spoilers. So what I'll say now is please just watch the show. I'm just recommending this to pretty much everybody. Just check it out if you like at all anything about the superhero genre.
Word. Yep.
Word.